Welcome everybody to our webinar. Appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to come and learn about machine learning and AI, specifically in higher education. So my name is Lance Dowdle. So I am a cloud sales manager here at Pluto 7. And I am joined by Bora Ozcan. He's the Associate Professor of Finance at Temple University. So what we're going to be doing is giving you guys some background, not only on the challenges that Bora has seen, particularly at Temple since the pandemic started in higher education, but wanted to give you guys really some outlines around what Pluto 7 has seen also as challenges across the various institutes that we are engaged with today. So Bora, can you just give the guys, 30 seconds about who you are, what you do, what you're responsible for at Temple?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. Bora Oscar, I'm an associate professor of finance. Aside from being a professor, I'm also the academic director of the online MBA and online BBA programs, which put me in the decision-making and seeing firsthand the challenges we have with not just academic side or the operational side of higher education as well.
Perfect. So what I really want to do is just want to jump straight into it. This last year's been insane. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. What's the biggest change that you've seen in higher education? Because you obviously have experience in the industry. What I guess the top three challenges, the top three transformations, changes that you personally have seen that have been the most impactful to the school so far?
So a few things I can say. So the online education have been growing. It has been growing since early 2000s. It has improved significantly, especially since 2010, 12. But what we've seen, so even before the pandemic, we could see a trend moving more towards students taking more online courses than face-to-face traditional. Of course, pandemic turned everything into online, which created unique opportunities and threats as well. Unlike the traditional face-to-face learning environment, students are having a difficult or challenges when everything is online. Not just on the learning side, on the services they receive, recruitment, and the guidance, the advising they get, to all the way through their graduation and beyond. It's not because it just doesn't end when they graduate. So there are so many components that made challenging. Those challenges turned into opportunities now, because unlike the traditional face-to-face classes, online students tend to get a little bit more distracted. That's a challenge, but also they leave a little digital footprints on everything they do, which creates opportunity for administrators and professors, frankly, to learn more about their students and provide them a more customized and much needed attention or service they will be getting. So I see that there's a lot of bits seeing that more and more. Again, this was something we have been working on before pandemic, but I think this is just a catalyst for digitalization in education.
So that's interesting. So that transition to online had already been happening, but the pandemic's just, I guess, put some urgency around that. What do you see as the heaviest lift for schools that are, Temple, obviously you guys are very, very good technologically wise. You guys are, more of the early adopters. What do you see as the heaviest lift to go from traditional in-person to going online? Take the pandemic out of it. Obviously that's going to be impactful, but where do you see the key challenges? Where is the pain, for lack of a better term?
So a few good things and bad things, again, is happening. I mean, the reality always is somewhere in the middle. It's not like everything is going to be online, or we're not going to get rid of everything online once the pandemic is over. There's going to be. So one good thing is a lot of students or individuals who were very skeptical about online and online activities, they're now more open to it because they have experienced it and they see that there are a lot of things that work better. And for a lot of the vice versa, for a lot of students who jumped onto maybe an online learning environment and did never realize it wasn't for them. So after pandemic, I think it's going to be it's going to be somewhere in the middle. But the challenge is what you see with that is students are having it's some again the difficulty of attention. Having them getting rid of the things they used to do and getting into a new environment. Trying to demanding like a 2-hour lecture, maybe what they understand from a typical course is not possible in an online setting because there's no person on earth now can sit down for a 2-hour long meeting, Zoom meeting. And we know that we're all zoomed out. We're all Google Meets out or, whatever medium we use. So we are tired of that one. So the challenge is then, what are the tools that can help learners? And what we've seen so far is if you plan and design those tools well, it can have better outcomes in a lot of instances, maybe more than what you would have achieved in face-to-face, a traditional setting. So, but the challenge is finding them, using those tools, and to provide that for unique to that specific learner.
Yeah, that makes sense because that adds to some of the experience that we've had at Pluto 7 is a lot of schools, like you say, everyone's zoomed out, everyone's Google meted out. It's really, how do you feel about education, not from a standpoint of, I like my course or I like my school. It's more things like, how do I feel about, online as a delivery method for education versus being in person? Because, to your point, you're never going to have 100% online or 100% in person unless, your school was born as an online school, which, they exist. However, it's how do you take the best of both worlds? How can you adapt as well? So that's definitely an interesting thing to take into consideration because I'm a student personally as well. So I do my degree at nighttime and I can definitely see why that would be important because another thing that we learned as well is schools are unable to mandate attendance because I've seen that I don't get graded anymore for attendance, right? So a lot of people will opt to watch a recording of a Zoom versus, to your point, going through a 2-hour Zoom live, right? And that can have an impact on the quality of the education. And schools are already worried about, hey, look, how do we charge the same amount for online that we do in person to make sure that quality of education remains the same? So, how would you see a school tackling that? How would you see a school, blurring those lines and being able to cater for all kinds of students that do have this variance in how they like to receive education?
I think the key is customization. So not just there's a personal differences in how people learn or practice. There's also differences in what point of their career the learners are.
Yeah.
In early careers, mid careers, later careers, their lives are different. It's all connected to their personal lives as well. Whether they have children at home, whether they have to take care of if they have health issues, so on and so forth. So there's so many variants that is not unique. It's one form. So what we are going to see is one fit for all is not going to work. So we will have to come up with customization specific to that individual learner and specific to that point of time they are in their personal and professional lives. So what's going to happen, universities have to do is, of course, the brand recognition is going to be important, how well they provide these contents to help students learn, and as well as how well they provide customized education to students' needs. So going back to your point, it's like I said, everybody's different. A lot of students, my experience, I see as I talk to applicants, students who are applying for our programs, for example, some of them are not fit. And I just totally tell them, this is not for you. We have a required synchronous sessions, which we think in our program, specifically students to get together and meet and work on their group or network, even though it is online, it creates an opportunity. But for a lot of students, it is unacceptable. Their lives are so on the go. They may be traveling a lot. They cannot simply commit at that point of time to meet live with the rest of the class. So there are programs out there who offer just 100% asynchronous. So they learn on their own time. One day they may spend 3 hours, the next day they may just have 15 minutes to work on. But so that brings that on-demand part, but also not just that. Moving forward, we need to be able to also understand how well, or better understand how well they're learning or how long they retain that knowledge. So that is the part where I think artificial intelligence and machine learning is going to help universities.
So that's an interesting point. So why do you think machine learning and AI is a fit for this? You know, what change in the world have you seen that requires schools to go down this ML and AI path to do the things like the custom education that you said? You know, everybody has busy lives. They want to pick and choose how they learn and build that individual roadmap. So, you know, what are your thoughts there?
So a few things. One of them is, again, it would have been very hard for, especially on the academic side. So there are a lot of things on the non-academic side, on the operational side of education, which runs almost like any other business, right? Or nonprofit, but there's still large amounts of operational challenges and opportunities there. But even if you think about only the academic side, there are opportunities that created by switching from in person, where a student only sitting there and you don't have anything, any digital information about what they do or how they learn, versus moving online and they leave a lot of digital footprint on everything they do, from their attention span, the websites they do, how much they learn, from visual learners to other types of learners who may be better learn by writing down, or so on and so forth. So this created, and the other thing is, before we had so much online presence, of course, AI machine learning wouldn't have worked because we did not have enough data. Now everybody is online, now that we have so much data about for all of the learners out there, so this creates an opportunity to implement better AI and ML models to understand the students' learning patterns and behaviors.
And that's interesting you say that, because that exponential data growth, that's not just limited to higher education. You know, the whole point of AI and machine learning being created as a, you know, why does it exist, is because the data growth is so exponential now that humans are unable to process that kind of information at that kind of scale, you know, efficiently, without bias as well, because that's a big one, and then be able to generate these insights and generate these analytics, right? Because one of the use cases, you know, Pluto 7 have done specifically is around a virtual agent, because as you say, everybody's on the go. They don't particularly want to call somebody on the phone. They don't want to email somebody and wait for a response. So they will go into a virtual agent based off of machine learning that has access to the entire database, that through natural language processing understands the intent of what the student is asking, and then it can marry up the right resources, because there are virtual agents out there today that exist for enrollment. So it'll be things like, hey, you know, what classes do I have left towards my degree? And I'm like, okay, you've got bang, like course. Okay, I want to do engineering 220, for example. Okay, engineering 220 is available on Monday at this time, Tuesday at this time. Would you like to add that to your schedule? Yes, I would like to add, you know, 1 to 3 p.m. on Thursday. Okay, boom, and it goes through there, right? No interaction, right? So that way, that helps the school scale also. So you can have these virtual agents feeding and resolving all these entry-level questions, so your support staff don't have to be answering basic stuff. They can do the more involved things that do require a human to do as well, right?
And I should point out, what those answers is typically a student were to look for those answers through their school's websites. A lot of large institutions with, let's say, 15, 20 different colleges in the institution with different, so you're talking about millions of pages across the university that students can easily get lost. And because it variation from one institution to another, it may be very overwhelming for a lot of people, whereas it can easily be achieved by a chatbot, just like you mentioned.
I agree. And one question I have for you, Bora, is a higher education institute like Temple, if they were to adopt and implement ML and AI, would you see that as a competitive advantage when you are trying to attract students to your school?
Yes, absolutely. I think there are a few reasons. One of them is, of course, as students do more digital, everything is digital, and they are experiencing their personal lives, professional lives, using different AI ML tools, or whether they realize it or not, they have some expectations. So if they go to an institution or search for an institution, they don't see that, they're going to be, I think it's going to be a turnoff. But beyond that, this is, it is the world with the online education. The historically, the geographical position of an institution would be the main factor for a potential student to make a decision. Now with online being more dominant, it is going to be, the competition is vast. Now you're not competing just your local universities. Now you're competing with universities all over the world. It's not just the United States anymore. So they can, and that gives opportunities for students. They have now better options. And beyond that, what I truly believe is also higher education is going to transform into a lifelong learning, because what we realize that we don't have to push all of this learning in the earlier part of the student's career. So that career progresses throughout their lives and what they need, and things change. What you may have learned 20 years ago, I'm a finance professor, what's been active or effective 10, 20 years ago is totally not the same right now. So the students or the professionals need refreshers. So I think to be able to provide that, we definitely have better investment in these digital disruption tools, AI and machine learning, to start with.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that that's a really really good point. And at Pluto 7 in particular, how we respond to this and then help schools go through this process is we understand what you guys are looking to do. We say, okay, you want to do a virtual agent? Okay, great. Well, tell us how you guys are supporting your students now, right? Then we take you through the workshop. We understand the technology that you guys are using, where you guys want to go. And then what we do, along with Google Cloud, because Pluto 7 is exclusive to Google Cloud, is we take the Google Cloud components, we build your solution, and then we put you on a proof of concept, right? And then we prove that that concept works. Then you guys would take that into live production from there. And that's not just limited to one use case, right? Once you guys have that centralized data repository, to your point, Bora, is you have so much data everywhere that unless you have that in a really easy to access area, it's going to be hard to do those kinds of things, right? So this has been an incredible amount of knowledge. Thank you so much, Bora, for taking us through it. So just as a parting, I guess, advice or a comment from you, if there are any schools watching today, they're like, hey, I've heard of AI, I'm not really sure about it, might be a little bit hesitant, or I don't know how to start that journey. What would your advice be to somebody like that?
Well, first of all, I think they should look at who is doing what, and I think as my experience in interacting with other schools in my online MBA world, every school is willing to talk to others. So we're willing to help each other out. I think this is a friendly competition, so feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions and what are the use cases we are doing or planning to do in the future. But just look at other use cases, talk to other colleges, universities, professors, how they do, what are the new things happening. And one thing is for sure, it is going to change. What we're looking for right now is totally going to change in a year from now. Hopefully post-pandemic world, the needs and wants are going to be different. So the key thing is you need to constantly reinvent yourselves. And so that means you have to start somewhere.
Exactly. Let's just get started, right? That's the biggest thing. Awesome, guys. Well, hope you guys got some value out of that. Like I said, if you want to learn more about how AI and ML are solving these challenges in particular in higher ed, reach out to me, reach out to Bora. We're here to help, and look forward to having conversations. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks for watching.